Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We still have people joining, so I'm going to give it a couple more minutes to just let everybody join, and then we'll start the webinar. So thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Installing Spinnaker with Helm Charts. My name's Bo Roberts. I run marketing at OpsumX, and I'll be the host for the webinar today. Just a few announcements and a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box at the bottom of the Zoom control panel screen. We will address questions during the presentation when it's appropriate, but most of the time we will address them at the Q&A section at the end. And let's see here. We'll also be asking several poll questions during the webinar today. These questions, we ask them basically to give our presenter an idea of who's in the audience so they can sort of customize and adapt the presentation a bit. These questions are completely optional, but if you can answer them, we would appreciate it, and we'll share the poll results with you when it's appropriate. Okay, so let's get started now. Okay, for those of you maybe new to OpsumX, just a little bit about us. We're a venture-backed startup based in Silicon Valley, and we help enterprise organizations modernize and transform their software delivery with Spinnaker. We provide an enterprise-ready distribution of Spinnaker called Open Enterprise Spinnaker. We provide managed Spinnaker as a service as well. And we provide Spinnaker onboarding, training, and support services to help enterprises adopt and scale continuous delivery in Spinnaker in their organizations. So a little bit about us, and why don't we move to the next slide. Okay, as I mentioned, we'd like to start off with a couple poll questions. And these are some basic questions just to let our presenter know sort of who's in the audience, and let me put those poll questions up right now. Okay, so the first question is, are you currently doing continuous delivery? And if yes, with what percentage of your production applications? And the second question is your organization currently evaluating or using Spinnaker? So I'll leave this up for just a little bit. If as I mentioned, it's completely optional, but if you can answer the question, these questions, we'd appreciate it, and we'll see what we have in terms of the audience. Let's see here. Okay, we still have a few people, who are answering, so I'll leave it up for a little bit longer. If anybody would like to answer, please try to do it now or in the next 5 seconds, and then I'll close the poll. Okay, I think everybody's given their answer, so I'm gonna close this poll. Okay, all right. With that, I'd like to turn it over to today's speaker, and there you go. I'm gonna turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Bo. Thanks for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending this webinar. Spinnaker is a continuous delivery tool, which is a homegrown tool in Netflix and was eventually open sourced in 2015. So it is a multi-cloud continuous delivery platform that helps releasing this software with high velocity and confidence. So what happens in today's IT era is that every company wants to stay ahead in the business by providing enhanced user experience ahead of the competition. To achieve that, they need a system to roll out new changes with high velocity and confidence. Should there be any hiccup, they also need a quick rollback, easy as possible. Yet all of this has to be done within a short time, adhering to the security compliance and other business mandates. So therefore, we have a lot of tools to meet the continuous delivery, and definitely Spinnaker is a leader among all other tools in the continuous delivery space. This helps integration of other CI systems like Jenkins, Travis, CI, and AWS code build, and of course Google Cloud build and other things. So the Spinnaker pipeline also helps integrating regression test and other test cases. Many other features in Spinnaker that includes rollback authorization control, manual judgment, and continuous delivery. The window can be selective during specific times, and it can receive triggers from other CA systems or even any other webhooks, and also it can notify when there is a delivery. Continuous delivery deployment pipeline is executed. It can also notify the users of choice. And of course, it has a large and vibrant community that should you have any questions, you can join the Slack channel that will show you the Slack channel at the end. And there are a lot of people out there to help you. So this is a big system. Spinnaker as a big system to orchestrate the entire continuous delivery as an immutable system. It also comes with lots of challenges like configuring the storage, such as that the metadata of Spinnaker pipeline where it should be saved. There needs to be a PV setup in distributed cluster. And of course, there is a tool called Halyard that helps configuring the Spinnaker. And we also need to manually configure a couple of parameters to the Halyard configuration system. And there is a Redis that also needs to be deployed and configured so that it houses all the execution histories. Additionally, if there is any lockdown environment wherein a large organization, they don't have direct connectivity to internet and also a more secured cluster like OpenShift. So in those environments, there are other challenges including anonymous user context only can be executed, not a specific user with specific user ID. And they will also look for namespace scope installation. These are the challenges that one would generally face during Spinnaker installation. But With Helm Chart, we can avoid most of the hurdles and we can easily go ahead and complete the installation. So if anyone wants to know what Helm Chart can solve for us, is it is like a yum for our CentOS or Red Hat Linux, and similarly apt-get for Ubuntu or Debian installations. So therefore, it is a package manager for Kubernetes on OpenShift clusters. You can package the connected objects, which means connected manifest together and bring out a single bundle package. And that can be used to deploy on a Kubernetes cluster. So which can comprise of all of the deployment stateful set, config map, secrets, and so forth. So all the connected objects can be bundled together as a single chart and can be installed. And this means the code, the Helm charts can be reused across different environments, different organizations. What it leaves us is there should be a way to override values depending on the environment, such as the target Redis URL, database username and password, and even the namespace, etc., etc. There should be a customization possible. So therefore, a file called values.yaml comes as a remedy to, satisfy this need. So for Spinnaker to be installed on a Kubernetes or OpenShift cluster, we first need to ensure that the Kubernetes is accessible. And then on the Kubernetes cluster, there must be minimum 4 CPU and 16 GB memory. Less than 16 GB memory makes your Spinnaker installation unstable and not able to access the UI. So 16 GB is minimum requirement. And of course, we need persistent storage for the Spinnaker metadata to be perceived. The list of other tools like Halyard, Mini, or Redis are the dependency systems that are required for successfully running Spinnaker. So during our Spinnaker installation, Helm chart will take care of every process, but generally what it will go through is, first it will deploy Minio, which will house the configuration, that is a S3 API replacement on a bare metal environment, and Redis for a stateful set, and in-memory cache that is used by Spinnaker. And there is another HAL job that connects to the Halyard stateful set to perform all of the configuration. And Halyard is the actual main component, which is the administrative tool for installing Spinnaker. Now, with once Halyard is up, it has to do the configuration such as what version of Spinnaker to be installed and what is the cloud storage to be used. Cloud storages can be AWS S3, Google Cloud, Azure Disk, and so forth. And in this space, we can replace it with Minio, and storage configuration will be configured. And next, cloud provider configuration will comprise of where exactly you're going to deploy the Spinnaker, which means Kubernetes. There has to be an account with kubeconfig setup. This has to be configured. And if any other additional custom settings that your Spinnaker wants, such as authentication, authorization, and any environment variables to be overridden with your pipeline execution, that has to be global. Those things come as part of the additional custom settings. Once all of these are configured, we will perform the deployment. So with that being said, I'll jump into the action, how to perform the Spinnaker using Helm. Sorry. I'm just making sure that kubectl is connected. One second. Okay, good. So we have the cluster up and running. So we are also going to make sure that we have Helm, because Helm is the tool going to perform the installation. Let me check if Helm is available. So Helm 3.1 is available. Then we need to go and pull the Helm chart that is needed for our installation. So we have the Helm chart available here, but if you like to know where this file is coming from, we can download it from the public Kubernetes Helm charts location. So this is the location we will go and download it. I already have it downloaded. Once this file is available, we will actually go and extract one particular file, the value.xml file. So if you look at the Helm chart, we have bunch of files, manifest files, all bunch of files are there. We are only interested in one particular file, that is values.yaml file. We will extract this file. So I have this extracted. So now I have this file extracted. Now, should we want any customization, we will go and update this values.yaml file. So all the settings are here, and the Spinnaker version, what the version we are going to deploy, this can be overridden here. Now, I'm going to put a couple of variables that I can pass it to my script. So I'm going to install Spinnaker 1.20.3, and namespace is going to be webinar, and the Spinnaker release name is going to be web release. So I will make sure that these values are set. Now let me make sure that namespace is available. So we don't have this namespace available right now. So let us create this namespace, kubectl create namespace webinar, and so let us set the context to use the current webinar namespace. Now with that is set, our kubectl configuration is perfectly ready to go and make the deployment. So I have a script that has these values completely configured. So we are going to install Spinnaker, and what is the Halyard image that is to be used to set up the Halyard daemon and other minis Redis images I have here. And this of course is the Spinnaker chart that we downloaded. So we are going to install it now. So now the installation is started. In the meanwhile, we need to monitor whether any new pods are getting created or not. So we see there are 4 pods being created right now. Earlier I mentioned there is a HAL job that is getting created first. This HAL job talks to this pod via a service entry point and performs all of the configuration on this pod. Finally, a process in this pod will perform the operation of Spinnaker deployment. So to understand what exactly is going on, we will check the log of this particular first pod. Okay, so it is perfectly configuring the storage and other configuration parameters, and it is also configuring a Docker hub to pull the Docker images from it. So these are just an ignorable error. When first it checks for the account, it is available or not. If it is not available, then it creates the account in the next step. Okay, so Spinnaker is installing, the Halyard is installing all of the Spinnaker components. You can see them here. These are all going and deploying. So should we flip the other terminal? We'll quickly get this installation done. Yeah. So now the installation is over as per the Helm Chart install. See this one. So right now the Helm has completed its job. To check if Spinnaker is up and running or not, we need to make sure that all the pods are up and running or not. All right. So these pods have to come up, and the ready status should be 1/1. So we'll have to wait for this to come up. So it will take about 2 to 3 minutes. It is definitely coming up quickly. So in the meanwhile, while this is coming up, I'll just want to touch upon, this is a internet connected installation. Just in case if anyone is interested to know what I should do to perform a deployment on a internet disconnected machine. So to take care of that, like we mentioned, first on the internet connected, so there will be 2 machines. On the internet connected machine, we'll have to prepare all the files that Halyard is pulling from internet. Right now, Halyard is doing on our other terminal. So we'll have to pull those Docker images plus couple of other bill of material files plus the Helm chart. So we have to download this one, bundle it, and copy over to the air-gapped machine. And with available files, we should set up Minio, Redis, and then Halyard. And then we also need to prefix the Spinnaker version and all the canonical component version that Spinnaker version uses with a prefix called a local colon. And then we also have to disable GCS pull within Halyard. Once all of these are done, we can simply do a hal deploy apply that will perform the Spinnaker installation in an air-gapped environment. So I just given this information just to know if we are interested to perform the installation on an internet disconnected machine, because right now we are doing it on a direct internet connected Kubernetes cluster. So we should see that. All right. So all the services are up and running. Definitely, we have completed in shorter time frame, less than 10 minutes. Now, what we need to do, get this access outside. Just check the services. So this particular service, a deck service, is the one Spinnaker UI. So we just go to the edit command and convert the type from cluster IP to load balancer. So this is managed cluster in Kubernetes, GKE. I mean, that is Google cluster. So therefore, it will talk to the load balancer that is supported by Google Cloud, and it will create a load balancer for us. So should we get the service again? So currently, an external IP is still pending to get. So currently what is happening is it is talking to the load balancer of GCP Cloud, and the load balancer there is creating a load balancer talking to this service and assigning an IP address. Okay. We're just waiting for an IP. Okay, so we got that IP. That's all. Now the Spinnaker is up and running. Okay, should we check the service port? It is 9000. Okay. So Spinnaker is accessible. Yeah. This. Okay. Spinnaker is successfully installed and the UI has come up. So with that, our installation of Spinnaker is complete. Now everything else that what the pipeline setup, deployment is now can be carried by the individuals on the Spinnaker UI, whatever has been set up. So to confirm if Spinnaker is working good or not, we will create one application. Okay, the application is created. Now, based on this application, we can go and create new pipelines for continuous delivery of our application on any environment. So, with that being said, I'd like to open it for questions if you have any doubts on this topic.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, so we're going to move to the Q&A. Before we get, in terms of the Q&A, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please, as I mentioned earlier, please type them into the Q&A using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and we will start answering questions in just a minute or two. Before we start the Q&A, I'd actually like to put up one more poll question. If you could advance the slide, that'd be great. Yeah. Okay. So the next poll question I'm going to put up is really just about. We often get people who request to be sent the presentation at the end of our webinars, and we don't post our presentations publicly, but we're happy to send them to you after the webinar. So I'm going to put up a poll question, and if you would like to be sent the presentation, you can simply select that, and we'll send it to you. There's going to be several other options on this poll question, and let me just explain those to you right now. So if you'd like us to follow up with you on Spinnaker training, onboarding, or support, just select that, and we'd be happy to do that. A couple other options, if you'd like to schedule a demo of OpsumX Open Enterprise Spinnaker, we can do that as well. And we also offer something called a Continuous Delivery Strategy Workshop, which is a complimentary 2-hour Zoom session that one of our CI/CD experts will do with you and your team, and help you kind of think through your CD strategy and help you start putting together a plan. So anyway, I'll leave this up for a little bit, and if you would like us to follow up with you on any of those things, simply select that. And with that, let's move on to the Q&A now. Looks like we've got some good questions from the audience. All right, so let's go. First question is, are there specs for AWS storage if I cannot afford S3?
Let me answer this one. Okay, in place of S3, one can utilize local storage, and then make the local storage like S3 API compatible with Minio software. So with our install, that was also covered. I mean, the Helm install also covers with the local storage. That's what we have to do.
Okay. All right. The next question is, what security protocols are present?
Okay. Security protocols. The Spinnaker. I mean, the security compliance, I guess that's what being asked. So first, it supports TLS encryption over the HTTPS as far as the exposing the Spinnaker UI. And for authentication, you can integrate with any OAuth systems, including SAML and Google, any OAuth authentication systems. Plus, it supports the RBAC strategies. There are two kind of models here. First, with the basic Spinnaker RBAC, one can fine-grain the control of who can do what with the application as well as the pipeline. So that will take care of the security compliance.
Okay, great. Let's see. The next question is, this may not be something that we'll answer here, but can we get documentation for this process and how custom configuration can be performed on the Spinnaker components. Yeah, I believe we have some kind of documentation on this that we can follow up with you. We can follow up with you on that. If you see the email address on the screen right now, hello@opsimex.com. If you could send us a request just to that email address, we'll follow up with you and get you that. Okay, next question. Did you set the Kubernetes on Google Cloud Platform or on your local Ubuntu machine?
This is on Google Cloud, GKE. So they manage cluster. So not on
Okay.
local Ubuntu machine.
Okay.
I hope that answers.
Okay, from the same person. Sorry, I didn't see this add-on question. This is from the same person. It says, because you mentioned about Google load balancer. So I'm trying to understand why only Google and not other cloud service providers load balancer.
Yeah, the reason for this is the Kubernetes cluster is on Google Cloud. So therefore, I was talking about Google load balancer. We can set up the same thing on AWS as well as Azure, even on other cloud environments. So should we set it up on AWS? The load balancer will be Elastic Load Application Load Balancer. That is on AWS. And should you try it on any bare metal environment, then you may use Nginx or HA proxy, other load balancing system that you can manually configure to route the traffic.
Okay, great. All right, got a couple more from somebody here. Says, in the Spinnaker website, Helm is mentioned as an evaluation installation method. Is this still the case? Let's see. I'm trying to, yeah.
Well, how well copes the Helm installation with the production good practices? Echo, Cloud Driver, HA setup.
Okay, so I think he's asking how well does Helm installation work in a production environment?
Okay, here the lot of small information to be provided, but I'll give you the broader answer. So the question here is on HA setup, specifically the Echo and Cloud Driver, etc. Helm, with Helm you can actually set up HA also, but for that the values.yaml file we talked about, that has a provision to go and do additional configuration. So in the additional configuration, we'll have to put up the additional files to enable HA that will spin up more Cloud Driver parts, each for different components of the Cloud Driver, and that can bring up Cloud Driver and other HA supported services.
Okay.
Also.
Okay, we've got another question, which is, could you please explain a little bit about the different containers created after Spinnaker installation?
So, once again, could you please explain a little bit about the different containers created after Spinnaker installation? Okay, so there are 10 components that come up as part of the Spinnaker. Okay, we can actually show that for you. Okay, so these components, before even Spinnaker being installed, we have seen 4 parts are being created. These are those lists. And these components, Cloud Driver, Deck, Echo, Front 50, Gate, Eiger, Arca, Roscoe. These component services are being created and the images are being pulled from GCR repository. Different containers. If this was made clear to you, fine. But if I have not answered, please write us to that email ID. Then we can explain to you.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see what the next question is.
Docker is not the UI.
Okay.
Deck is the UI. Yes. Okay. The what is the email ID? Email ID will show it in the next slide. You can capture it. hello@opsmx.com.
Yeah, I'll answer that. Okay. There, we answered that. Okay, I think we've got a couple other questions that we can, couple other questions. So let's, let me move on to those. Okay, pardon me, everybody. Just, okay. Okay, I've got another question here, which is just in case, should we want to try out the Spinnaker installation on a bare metal Kubernetes cluster setup, are these instructions still valid? Are there any additional steps?
Okay, so like I mentioned, what we did is installation on GKE. That means managed Kubernetes cluster on Google platform. But should we try it on bare metal? There are a couple of other steps that we might need to manually handle it. So part of the installation, the Helm chart will set up a PVC. When it creates a PVC, it will request for persistent volume claim. So on the managed clusters, there is an automatic provisioning of PV. So should you go for bare metal, then there has to be a storage class defined by your Kubernetes administrator, or if you are trying it on your local environment, you need to manually take care of the PV setup. Other instructions are pretty much the same as what we have covered.
Okay. All right, we've got, let's see, we've got another question here. Is the Helm-based Spinnaker installation, is it completely scoped to just the given namespace, or any cluster wide objects are set up? Sorry if I didn't read that correctly.
Okay. Yeah. Currently, what the Helm installation we went through, almost all the objects are created within the given namespace. We had the namespace called webinar, and every objects are getting created in that only. But there is one extra object, a cluster role binding gets created. That is just to make sure that the service account, once created within Spinnaker, has the ability to deploy every other namespace within Spinnaker itself. So after Spinnaker is deployed, you're eventually going to target the same Kubernetes cluster also for a deployment. So just to provide deployment on every other namespace also, this provision of create cluster role binding was created. So should that be a necessity to control it, we can turn up the flag not to create the cluster role binding.
Okay, let's see. We've got another question here. Can we install Spinnaker on an OpenShift cluster using a Helm chart? Any special constraints compared to a Kubernetes cluster?
That's a good question. Okay, So there is bit of anonymous user context in OpenShift. That is sometimes, I mean, on the Kubernetes, you are allowed to run 1,000 user. I mean, the user ID being 1,000 and the username can be specific. But when you go to OpenShift cluster, you're not allowed to run user ID 1,000. So there will be a random number being generated as the user ID, so which is an anonymous user context. In this case, there has to be additional, I mean, these default images, what has been used here cannot be used. We as OpsMX company have created custom images that we have published on our Docker registry, DevOpsMX, Docker.io/DevOpsMX. So in that registry, the custom images are available. So should anyone need these custom images for OpenShift, you can very well reach us on this email ID. We can help you out.
Okay, looks like you've got one last question here. You have set up Redis as part of the installation process. Can we use an external Redis instance?
Yeah, that is possible. Let me. We can use external Redis. So should there be a necessity to use an external Redis? So we can open up the values.yaml file before installing Spinnaker. And see, there is a section here. Right now, whatever is being configured locally is being used. But once you make the external Redis URL populated here, then your Spinnaker installation is going to use the external instance instead of setting up its own one. That's how you handle it.
Okay. All right. We're at the end of our questions. If anyone else, if any of you have any other questions that you'd like to ask before we wrap things up, please do that now. And if you have any other questions, we'll try to address them. But I'm not seeing any other questions right now. So with that, unless we get another question in the next minute or so, we'll wrap things up. So getting back to the poll question, if I'm going to end this poll question, if anybody else would like to request, the presentation or follow up on any of these things, please do that now, and I'll wrap that up in about 5 seconds or so. And other than that, I just wanted to.
Yeah, there was one question that Halyard is reaching its, deprecation. Maybe another tool is being replaced. For now, Halyard is being continuously improved with what the new features and defect fixes. And the other tool, maybe I forgot that name, that is being developed in parallel with Halyard. So that will come, down the line. It's not immediate, just to answer that.
Okay, great. Sorry, I guess I didn't see that one. Okay, so I'm gonna end this poll now. So thank you very much for that. Unless there's any other questions, I think we're going to wrap things up for today. I wanted to thank you all for joining us today on today's webinar. And I'd encourage you to go to opsmx.com and check out our webinar schedule. We are doing a lot of webinars and tech talks these days. We've got some really good ones coming up. So please go to opsmx.com, check it out, and we hope to see you on a future webinar. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.